Hey, good morning. Everybody feeling good on this frosty morning? In fact, it's so cool the Wi-Fi didn't work correctly. It was froze up for a little bit. I want to remind everybody for the Regency Oaks Residents Organization meeting November 16th, and I hope we have this big a crowd for that. And we'll share with you what we've been doing all year long, goals and achievements. So please attend there. Don't want to go into that too much depth because we got to cover some important topic this morning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Brent.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, one sure way to get people out to attend something is you either serve them food or you talk about what they're going to pay. So, I didn't bring donuts. So, good morning and welcome. We'll jump right into this. There was some graphics on that first slide, but we lost something in the internet. We're not going to go back and try to capture it. We think the rest of the presentation is here. If we have to go back and miss a slide, we'll fill in. We do have some paper copies. So, Regency Oaks is working on their budget. There are always three people that we have to take care of when we talk about our budget and what we're going to do with the monthly service fee increase. And those three, I'm not going to say that word. Those three units are our residents and families, our employees, and our shareholders. And the way I always think of this is a three-legged stool. If you have a three-legged stool and one of the legs is shorter than the other or one of the legs is missing, are you going to have balance? Is it going to be a stable operation? It's not. And so we have to make sure that we're accommodating the needs of all of our constituents. We want to make sure that the residents are getting the services that they have come to expect and that they pay for. We want to make sure that our associates are well paid and that we stay competitive in the market. And then we also need to make sure that the shareholders who invest their money and fund the operations and purchase of the community, that they're getting a fair return as well. And so it's a balancing act. Why does my monthly service fee go up every year? At Regency Oaks, our costs continue to outpace the consumer price index. And so even though you know that your contract is tied to CPI, and there are lots of different contracts, basically, we have three types of contract. We have one that's based solely on CPI. We have another contract that's based on the greater of CPI or 5%. It's capped. We have another contract, and about 60% of you have this contract, and it's based on CPI plus 2%. But the reality is, even with the CPI plus 2%, the cost at Regency Oaks are greater than the CPI plus 2%, particularly in inflationary periods. Now, that's not true when our costs are lower, but everyone's following what's happening in the economy with the shortfalls and the supply chain issues and the rapid inflation. And so this year, we find ourselves in a situation where CPI plus is not covering our actual costs. CPI measures the change in prices and consumers pay for goods and services, and it reflects the spending patterns. This is often called a market basket of goods, and I have another slide that will give us a little bit more detail on that. But the thing to walk away on this particular slide is when you talk about that market basket of goods and services, it has some labor. But that labor consists of the labor of getting the market goods to the actual marketplace. And the third part of that is the direct labor cost is not a part of CPI. And so when we look at our contract, we have CPI, which is the market basket of goods and services, and then we have the 2%, which is designed to cover the labor component. And if anyone who's attended this in the past, I always talk about, getting a market basket of goods and service. And I give an example of if you're a farmer and you have an ear of corn, the labor that's included in that market basket is getting the seed, putting it in the ground, watering it, tending to it, harvesting it, getting it, picking the bushels, getting it to the combine, selling it and delivering it to the grocery store, getting it from the grocery store to the community. That part of the labor is included in the market basket. What's not included in that is what happens when that ear of corn reaches our door. And it's the cost of taking that ear of corn, shucking it, cleaning it, cooking it, serving it. That labor is not included in the market basket. So if you ever look at the contract and you say, well, how come my contract is CPI +2? It covers, CPI covers the cost of goods and services, and then the +2 is the labor component.
Good morning.
Too close. I'll go hide over here in the corner.
Okay, so the next slide talks about the budget process. This is a little bit of a re-review from our presentation 2 weeks ago, but for those of you who didn't get that information. So my job is to create a budget, an operational budget that's going to support all 3 legs of that stool. I need to make sure the goods and services are provided to the residents and the families. I need to make sure that our employees are taken care of, that they earn a fair wage, that I provide benefits, that I am competitive in the market to retain our employees year over year. And finally, we have a responsibility to our owners and our shareholders. So with that, the budget begins with estimating revenue. And revenue comes from move-ins, your monthly service fee. That's top line revenue in the operating statement. So we look at our move-ins and our move-outs, and of course we strive to increase our occupancy year over year, and that's going to drive our revenue. Then we're going to start looking at our expenses, mainly our operating expenses and our wages. I have to start by putting in what's the current inflation factor. And as you know, CPI comes out every month, and it looks at a year-over-year perspective. It looks month to month, but the way we operate is what was it last year at this time versus what it is this year at this time. And then labor, as you know, we've been mandated by the state of Florida to increase minimum wage to $15. That was originally and still is tiered over the next 4 years. However, our governor has recently moved that up so that we're under that wage pressure even sooner than we had originally planned over the next 3 or 4 years. And with labor, you know, we are looking at what our competitors are paying, what our local businesses are paying, and so we need to be competitive and retain our employees so that we reduce our turnover and provide excellent customer service. Benefits. We want to provide good benefits to our employees, competitive benefits. It includes health insurance, 401k options, long-term, short-term, a nice list of benefits to provide the employees to attract them here. And then we look at what's called a non-controllable list of expenses. And if you hear my report every month, those include our taxes and insurance, that we don't have as much control operationally here, but they still are very impactful to our budget. And obviously those types of expenses go up. And then what we do at the bottom line is we need to decide how much is going to get reinvested back into the community. You know, that's where the capital money is coming from. We need to make a profit to continue to make our community attractive to outsiders, to provide you with additional customer amenities so that you enjoy life at Regency Oaks. So bottom line is, we have to balance our mission to you, and our margin, our responsibility to our shareholders and our employees. So that's kind of a high-level view of our budget process. So then, where does the monthly service fee increase come in? Okay, so that's part of our revenue in the budget process. We begin by looking at what our current inflation factor comes out once a month, year-over-year changes. October is when the Social Security COLA living adjustment is also published. So that helps offset my increase because I've got my inflation. However, you're receiving an increase in your Social Security. We assume that our competitors and our local businesses are all facing the same, experiencing the same inflationary impacts. So their labor is going up. That it's not just healthcare that has to go to 15%. They want to retain their employees. They want to reduce their turnover. So we know that we look at market wages. We look at, our city area. We do analysis to see what's competitive out there. And as well as senior living communities. What are they charging? What do they offer? What is their entrance fee? So then what we do is we have to cover that inflation. And then that's where Brand explained that the 2% is to, once those market basket of goods come to our door, then we pick those up, and then we have to pay those costs above and beyond, mainly labor. And so this is where we will be adding a 2% adjustment. Going back to mission and margin, COVID was very, reduced our net operating income over the past few years. And so now our owners are looking at COVID is over, we have higher expectations, and we have to get to pre-COVID numbers. That's a responsibility to them, to you, and our employees. So, we continue to look for operational efficiencies. We look to try to bundle expenses. We have our owners help us to do that, purchasing discounts, things to help minimize as much as possible and avoid any type of waste, and increase our purchasing power at a discounted rate.
That's me. All right, so the last 3 years have really been sort of this perfect storm. Because you think about what's happened with COVID and the economy and inflation and our associates, and it's really been a difficult environment to try to operate in. COVID has impacted our residents' lives. We have been shut down over the last 3 years for amenities and services how many times, and we've gone through multiple waves of COVID. It's impacted our ability to attract and retain staff. It's impacted us on the front end from a marketing perspective. Selling independent living in a COVID environment can be a challenge. Perry and Lucy and the team have done a really good job, but all of you know that we've been impacted from census. Our skilled nursing was operating at 50% occupancy for a little over a year and a half. Our independent living, where we started COVID, we entered COVID at about 360 apartments sold. Today we're 345. And so we've seen a decline in census. We've had a fire that we've had to deal with that has impacted the number of available units that we have available for sale. And so all of that has helped with this inflationary cycle and the supply chain and rising cost. It's all just having a part of it. I think I addressed everything. Next slide. So let's take a look at CPI over the past 20 years. And I just graphed this out so that we could take a look at it. that first part of the slide, the top part, that's the market basket of goods and services. And so if you look at what's included in there, this is a pretty comprehensive list. It's food, energy, electricity, apparel, medical care, housing, education, gasoline, natural gas, new vehicles. And so this is all that's included in the CPI calculation. And then down there across the bottom, that you can see up until the start of COVID, we had been in a fairly static situation when it came to inflation. It's been running under 5% and much closer. That average is about 2.7% over the last 20 years. I think there are two things that are important to look at when we look at this slide. You'll see that there are two peaks. One is a down peak and one is an up peak. And so I can remember back in 2008 when that was sort of a period where we saw a downturn in the housing market and inflation just fell through the roof. And then we can come over here and see an upward peak in 2021, and you can just see what inflation has done over 21 and 22, where we're approaching 10% CPI. And so it's been a pretty significant impact and a variation from the static of CPI. And so the walk away, I think, from this slide is that when we think about inflation and cost of living increases and monthly service fee increases, you have to look at it over an average. And so this year, everyone in this room already knows you're going to get hit hard. We've been telling you all week or all month that we thought the numbers were going to be up around 11.7%. That's what we quoted last month when we presented the budget. But it's a snapshot view. This year it's high. Last year it was a little less. The year before it was almost nothing. And if you look at it over a 20-year average, is it probably going to be close to that 2.5 to 4%? Probably. Next slide. So here are the numbers. Overall inflation, this is off of the most recent CPI report. It just came out on the 13th. Overall inflation is 8.2. And for Regency Oaks, that CPI increase, which is based on the all urban consumer Class A Southern region, is 8.7. The primary drivers of the CPI market basket this year, you can see all items there in red. They're up about 8.2%. Our food costs in blue are up 11.2%. Energy, and this is not only gasoline, but electricity and all the fossil fuels used to generate power is up almost 20%. And our non-food items as a whole, global, this is supplies basically, they're up about 6.6%. So those are the drivers. Now you'll recall that last 2 weeks ago, I guess, when we did the monthly service fee budget presentation, we also shared with you information on what each of the individual departments, what those cost increases look like. This is sort of a summary now. So next slide. This is a quote from Diane Bridgewater. She is the Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer of LCS. And she says, with inflation rates not seen for more than 40 years, one of the most important levers we have is price. This, of course, is coupled with driving best practices, efficiencies, and the procurement of goods. Our ability to achieve the goals and purpose of the community include our ability to achieve budgets, debt convents, and cash flows. Never in our career has pricing been more important. And so what she's saying in that message is, we understand that this is a pretty significant increase and it follows a pretty significant increase from the previous year. But we stay the course because we are positioning ourselves to make sure that as inflation begins to recede, that we are going to continue to be competitive, that we're going to continue to have the services and amenities that you've come to expect available, that we're going to have the longevity and key staff here to provide those services, and that we're going to continue to make reinvestments back into Regency Oaks to make sure that this property continues to address seniors' needs long into the future. So here is the new rate in January 2023. Those of you who have that increase, the CPI is 8.7. You can add to that an additional 2%, and so the increase is 10.7. Now the good news is when we presented this last month and talked about the budget, we were projecting that was going to be at 11.7. So it's dropped a whole percentage point. I know that's not a tremendous amount, but it is, the good news is 10.7 is less than 11.7. Our blended rate for 2023 is 8.9%, and that's blended in two ways. We have a January increase, we have a September increase, and an October increase. So we're predicting a little drop in inflation over that period of time. We are also predicting that because that increase, second and third increase, September and October, comes at the end of the year, it impacts the overall percentage and drives it down a little bit. The January increase, we get to take advantage of the higher income for 12 months. The fall increases, we get to take advantage of the income for a shorter period. It's only a quarter. And so the blended rate is about 8.9. Another piece of really good news here is the 2023 Social Security increase is 8.7, the highest in years. And yes, I know, the standard response is, yeah, but it's all going to go to Medicare. Probably some truth to that, but it's a recognition that if you look at the delta between the 8.7 and the 10.7, it's exactly on track with CPI. And so the government is looking at this as well and understanding that, seniors who rely heavily on fixed incomes and pensions and Social Security, they're recognizing that they need to keep pace with what's happening with CPI. And I think this year that there's pretty good evidence that they're sensitive to that, and they've done a good job with it.
So again, touching on some key expense assumptions, there's a lot of, these are key economic indicators. And it's been hard. It's been hard for everybody. It's hard for you, it's hard for your families. It's impacted me, it's impacted our employees quite significantly. So looking at 2023 global inflation, we are expecting that to reduce to maybe 5%. However, we are still experiencing some labor shortages and high cost trends like food throughout 2023. So the monthly service fee is trailing to the inflation. This is going to help cover our costs throughout this coming year. Wage and merit increases, again, I touched on that earlier. Legislation requiring the $15 an hour minimum wage. Some of our competitors are already offering that. We need to step up and do the same. It is a tight market for associates to fill our open positions, and just for our, as an employer, our cost of health benefits and insurance is increasing significantly as well. So our cost that we carry for our employees continues to increase. Now utilities, they're forecasting 2023 at 2.5%. So, next slide. I'm going to take a little look into the crystal ball, and for the International Money Fund U.S. inflation forecast, you can see that By the end of 2023, when we're re-looking at this again during our budgeting process, they're forecasting 3.5% in 2023. So plus another 2%, 2.2 in 2024, and then back down to some record lows, probably for when most of you moved in, it was 2%. So the forecast is looking improved. That's what our crystal ball, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what I'm sure you're hoping for too. So again, we're in some hard times, we're all experiencing it, but the budget is going to balance that for all of our constituents, and it's going to be very successful. So, are we headed for the big R? What's the big R? Recession. Yeah, exactly. So, the consensus forecast is that the U.S. real gross domestic product, GDP growth, will return to positive territory following declines in the first and second quarter. Current inflation far exceeds so their crystal ball wasn't quite so good. 2% target, while it is continued decelerating, the medium-term outlook is uncertain. So, strong job growth throughout the first 7 months of 2022, and the July unemployment rate at least is at a record low again at 3.5%. However, these indicators are not very consistent with recessionary conditions. So it's kind of a foggy crystal ball. Any comment on that, Brad?
Yeah, I do have a comment on that. Hold on, I think I'm off. So I think there are two things there that are really, really important. And so here's how I read that chart. And so yes, the first couple of sentences talking about, we're looking at here, and there's inflationary costs, and there are wage pressures, and there are supply chain issues, and all of that is probably related to COVID and our recovery, because that's actually, when you go back and think about that, that's the initial cause of this. And so they're saying that our short-term outlook doesn't look all that rosy, and that's probably true. And we can anticipate that we're going to have another couple of quarters of low growth in our economy. But here's the most important part, at least I think in this slide, is it says that the indicators of a recession are not there. We have strong market growth. We have strong labor. And so there are some indicators that are saying this doesn't really look like a recessionary period. It looks more like a recovery period to COVID, to the Ukraine war, to instability because of the workforce that is been impacted by COVID. And so I have a little more optimism, and I think when you look at the International Monetary Fund chart, the slide before, and you see that steady line going out from late 2023 out 5 years, it's pretty darn low. I think that's what they're seeing as well, is that, yeah, we have a couple of more quarters where it's going to be rocky, but we're seeing some stability starting in June of next year. And so I think that's some positive news.
So here's a few bullet points that I've said year over year while I've been here. You should be asking yourself, how can I help? How can you help? How can you help me? How can you help the community? So continue to partner with the community. Look for ways for us to be more efficient and cut any type of wasteful spending. We do that quite diligently amongst ourselves, but here's where share your ideas through a RoRo committee. Our board members rotate on and off. Start with committees. This is where you can leverage your experience. You come to the table, you come to our community with so much experience and life stories. Bring that to the table with your committees. That's the platform to talk about things that you might not like, things that you do like. We're here for service you. But going through the committees is the appropriate way to go through to help change the whole community for the better. So adopt a founder's mentality. Act like you're an owner. You are an owner. You're a stakeholder, you're a resident, you're part of that three-legged stool to be successful. We want to be successful as a community. So, finally, there's one thing that you all can do is help us build census, fill the buildings. And by that, you can refer your friends, and we do pay referral fees. So if you have a new referral, bring them in. We're here to help make that successful for you.
And so this is a Chris Bird quote, and Chris made this quote probably 10 years ago when we were all with Brookdale. Chris now is the chief executive officer of LCS and president of the Health Peak portfolio. So long-time association with Chris. And this is really, I think, something that is important, and it's why you probably have seen this slide every year for 10 years. You heard me mention earlier that we're about 15 off in occupancy between now and where we were at the start of COVID. Just do the math here with me. So you take 15, you take it times an average entry fee of about $225,000. That equates to about $4 million in entry fees that we don't have. You take that monthly service fee times 15 times 12 months, and you add that for the duration of the life expectancy, which is about 10 years here at Regency Oaks. It's almost $12 million bucks. So in those 15 residents, there's almost $16 million worth of missing revenue. What do you think our conversation would look like if we had 16 additional residents here? Probably be a little bit different story. And how is that manifested? You have seen it. I've had people ask me, well, how come, I know contractually this is what I signed up for and this is what my contract says and you're doing exactly what the contract says you're going to do. But how come some of the communities, they don't exactly do what is contractually allowed? They do something less. And the answer is it's because they have full occupancy. And there are additional residents who are coming in the front door who are able to help offset that. And so what you can do to help is to make sure that you're serving as an ambassador, that you're agreeing to host residents at lunch, that you're participating in our outreach, that you are contributing in the sales and marketing process. Because new residents is new cash flow, and it helps to share the burden. Because and you've heard me say this a million times, every penny Regency Oaks takes in and every penny Regency Oaks spends has one source, and it's you. So marketing is the lifeblood of Regency Oaks. And I think that's it, and we'll open for questions and maybe turn up the lights.
When you get the microphone, please hold it close so everybody can hear.
I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are new employees required to be vaccinated still?
So the question is, are new associates required to be vaccinated? And so all associates, whether they're new or old, are required to either be vaccinated or to have an exemption based upon medical or religious beliefs approved by the state. And so that's consistent with our practice.
Right, and another one, are we at full staff with housekeeping?
So the second question is, are we at full staff with housekeeping? And we are very close. We have one person out on a maternity leave, and then we have where we're short is with our PRN workers, our part-time workers. Our full-time positions are either full or in training, so we've made some progress with housekeeping.
I have a question for Sherry. If I just got an increase, a nice one, in September, does that mean January I'm going to get another one?
No, ma'am.
Or not until September?
Not until September.
Thank you.
So the question for those of you who didn't hear is, she was asking if I just got an increase, September or October, am I going to get an increase in January? And the answer was no, you get an increase once a year. And so if you got one in September, your next increase won't be until September of 2023.
Back there with Joe.
Okay, could you tell us the profit, the amount, the either dollars or percentage that the big guys over our heads make, the company over us, that leg of the, you know, the stockholders and all that sort of stuff? How much are they making?
Yeah. So,
Percentage or-
sure. So you'll recall from the budget slide that our NOI, our net operating income for 2023, we're projecting about $5.2 million. Now, from that, you have to subtract debt service, which is about 2.3 million. So that leaves about 3.3 million left. And from that, we are going to reinvest some additional capital funds back into the community. And so those capital funds, we have 3.3 left, and we have submitted 5.7 million. So we've submitted more capital funds requests than there are dollars available. Now, I can't 100% answer that because the capital budget is not approved. And you'll recall the timing is really important on this. The operational budgets are approved on December 1st, and then once everybody knows what the cash that is going to be available, that's when they go and adjust the capital budgets and let us know what's approved. I can tell you that consistently over the last few years, the net gain for the ownership group is somewhere between 2 and 3%. Don't know, not able to tell you what it's going to be for next year because we just don't know that capital dollar question yet. But as you think about that, you know, I often tell people, how many of you would like to invest $1 million? I'll take your checks right here today. How many of you would like to invest $1 million in a industry that runs 50% occupancy in its skilled nursing, is primarily still shut down in terms of operations globally, and returns a 2% or 3% investment? I probably wouldn't get a lot of takers, right? You can get that on your CDs, and if you're in stocks and bonds or a diversified small growth portfolio, you can do better than that. So it's a very conservative portion of cash that our shareholders take. We got someone with a mic.
Here we go.
Brad, it's been some months since we had the fire. We've had a number of units badly damaged. Closer? Okay. Badly damaged. How many of those units now have been restored to usable, comfortable situations?
So the question relates to the fire and where we are with the construction and how many people are no longer displaced. And so we broke this up into 3 phases. Phase 1 is completely done. Phase 2 is going to wrap up by the end of this month. And so by November 1st, we will only have the Phase 3 residents, and those were the apartments that were completely gutted. They took a tremendous amount of damage. The Phase 3 residents, there are 8 of them, they will not be back in their apartments until January 1st. And so the goal is to get everyone back into their apartments by January 1st, and then by February 1st, we'll have all the corridors complete, the temporary carpet laid, and be able to exit Blue Team out the door for a while.
Could you say that again about the carpeting?
February 1st is when we hope to have the temporary carpet and all the corridors completely painted and back to normal.
Yeah, it's a nice presentation,
Where are we?
right here.
Oh, okay, thanks.
But it's obvious the big culprit is inflation. And I would recommend everybody educate themselves as to what's behind inflation in the US. And it's incompetence. And I won't get political, but I'll just say, vote on November 8th.
Brad, I have a question. I've heard this when I first moved in here 6 years ago, when you mentioned something about memory care and assisted living. Is this ever going to happen? Because we have some people here that, you know, that with memory care, they have to go somewhere else. They want to stay here. It'd be nice if, when my husband was alive, I made it a point that I wanted to stay here, but I wanted to stay here with him, not somewhere else. I want to stay here with him. This is where I bought in. So I was just wondering, I know what you said when I first moved in. Something happened to it. I want to make sure that I know from you or whoever it is that we will someday have memory care and assisted living.
Thank you, Rita. So the question has to do with memory care and assisted living. Are we ever going to get it? And so there are two things I can tell you. Regency Oaks, I have been assured, is at the top of the list in the peak portfolio for expansion of assisted living and memory care if and when we ever start building assisted living and memory care again. And the issue right now is it goes right back to our occupancy, not here at Regency Oaks. Our assisted living and skilled nursing is 100% occupied for the first time in a year and a half, but today we are 100% occupancy. As a portfolio, our occupancy in assisted living and memory care is down below 60%. And so imagine how difficult it would be to walk into a bank and say, I want to borrow $34 million. That was the estimated cost of our expansion. I want to borrow $34 million to build a property that is never going to have more than 60% occupancy and will never cash flow. Do you think any bankers are going to line up to do that? No. And so we just have to face the reality is that right now today, the environment is not good to go out and borrow money to build a product that is difficult to market right now. But is that going to be the case 3 years from now? Probably not. Assisted living and skilled nursing has been, it was an industry that started back in the 40s. And so it's not going away. We know that the baby boomers, 7.5 million baby boomers are going to join the marketplace before 2030. 7.5 million baby boomers. This is an industry that is not going to go away. It's going to continue. That demand is going to drive new beds in assisted living, skilled nursing, memory care. It's just not, right now today, it's not the environment to go and try to get money. And you know, you've also heard me say this, but it's like, it's the hardest sell since Walt Disney went to a bank and said, I want to build a resort-themed park where a mouse can talk and a fairy can fly. And what do you think happened to that first banker? They threw him out. So the answer, I think, Rita, is yes, it's coming. It's not coming this year.
Excuse me, are we still telling, is marketing still telling the future people that it's coming now? You know,
No.
reader
Yeah.
and faced? No.
Yeah. So the question is, how does marketing position this in the sales pitch? And so here's what marketing is saying. We are a continuing care retirement community. We offer a full continuum. we have assisted living, we have skilled nursing, and we take care of memory care. 100% of the residents at our assisted living have as a primary or secondary diagnosis dementia. And so all of that is factual information. And so our staff is extremely capable and well-trained on how to deal with dementia residents. And because the majority of our assisted living is memory care, we absolutely can say and feel confident in saying that we take care of memory care residents all the time. What we don't have is a secured memory care facility for individuals with dementia who have reached the point where they are a behavioral problem or they are violent to themselves or others. Those are the two things that Regency Oaks doesn't have, is that level of care for a very small portion of the population that requires the services of a secured memory care. And Joe, to your point, if in fact you need that, we don't have it. That's true. We do have portability to our sister communities where you'll be able to get those services, but it's absolutely a poor second because it's not on campus, and it's very difficult if you have to place a spouse down at Freedom Square and then you're going to have to visit with our transportation. And so we recognize that, but we do feel very comfortable in saying that we do have memory care, and that's an accurate statement. Anything else?
One over here.
One over here.
I was probably floored when I found out our average age here is 87. How are we gearing our advertising that we are independent living? My friends all, no matter what, say, oh no, that's assisted living where you live. Even the firemen thought we were assisted living. That was bad publicity for us. Are we advertising in some younger way or some changing our ads?
So great question. It has to do with the age of our resident population and what are we doing to try to attract a more active younger crowd. And so the average age of the residents here at Regency Oaks is 87. Our average age at move-in is 82, so a little bit different there. So we are attracting a little younger, but we don't want to be attracting the 72-year-olds. We want to be attracting the 76-year-olds. And so that is part of our marketing strategy. And so as you think about, why are we doing this total remod of the entire town hall, and you look out there, every single thing is going to be new. I mean, it's the gastropub, the new fitness gym, the town hall, the wellness center, the beauty salon and spa, all of the breezeway and the pavers and the fire pits. And we're doing that to offer the amenities that are going to be more attractive to a younger population. And so although we want to make sure that we're servicing the needs of our 87-year-olds, we also want to make sure that we're marketing to a crowd that's a decade earlier. And so that's the way we are investing, is we're changing the amenities and the service packages to make it more attractive to individuals. Now, in terms of our direct mailers and our marketing efforts, we have already bought the targeted mailing list and done our advertising based upon demographics that are much younger than that 87. And so that was the first step. The second step is to enrich these amenities so that we can be more attractive to a younger group. Great question, thanks.
I feel like an oddball. We moved in when I was 72.
Hey, we're glad to hear you're driving down the average.
Well, I'm loving every minute of it, yes.
Yes, that's true. And so that's the other side of it. Regency Oaks takes such incredible care of you and has such wonderful food, services, and amenities that you're living longer. You're driving up our average age. Now, here is something interesting. Do you know that the average age at the skilled nursing is younger than the average age in independent living? Yeah. So about 85, and we're 87. And so it's, whether we take the credit for it or not, it's you are living better, living healthier, more active, exercising, focused in on doing the right things, and that seems to be the difference. It's not your age, it's how well you live. Or, yes.
Yes, my question has to do with competitive weaknesses. Do you know what the occupancy levels are of those you would consider competitors to us?
Yeah, so yes, we do. And our marketing team keeps very extensive spreadsheets on square footage and availability of units and price per square foot and what their services and amenities look like. And it's in a very large spreadsheet that, yes, it helps us target where we're going to spend our marketing dollars.
What would you think is our major competitive weakness?
So it is, all right, so two things. So first off is we don't really have a CCRC that we compete with. And yes, there are two of them just to the north of us, Mies Manor, St. Mark's and Coral Oaks. Thank you very much. So those are the two CCRCs that are north of us. They don't really compete with us. They are, one is church sponsored, the other is lower income, and so you can get a contract at St. Mark's starting at about $70,000 for an entry fee. We don't compete with that. The people who come to Regency Oaks don't go and look at those two competitors. So our primary competition is rental. And so the biggest challenge we have as a competitive weakness is positioning ourselves so that people see the value of CCRC. Rental apartments, there's no big endowment, there's no upfront fee, there's no out-of-pocket cash. It's a month-to-month rental, and the rents tend to be very similar to what we charge. And so people always ask the question, well, what am I getting for this large amount of cash that I'm investing in your community? And so being able to sell and position Life Care and let prospects know the advantages and the difference between us and rentals, that's our biggest challenge.
You have a bigger turnover.
Yes, they do, absolutely. And it's interesting, we were looking, the finance committee or the executive committee, I forget who I was speaking with, but we were looking at some of the rental properties, and Aston Gardens came up. Aston Gardens, their way of dealing with inflation is they have done 2 increases in 23 instead of 1. So, I mean, that's how rentals are dealing with that.
Brad, one of the ways of pushing back on inflation is to stop buying. And if you listen to some of the people that are being interviewed on television about their challenges now that we have this inflationary economy. So that begs the question for us here. And essentially, what items or what features are you going to have to be buying, or by preference, that you want to buy in this budget that we're talking about? And I wish we had a line item budget so we could better see what the commitments have been or what they're going to be. Because, for example, as I look about and I see the furniture, sometimes the furniture that's being replaced, there was nothing wrong with that furniture. And a good example is the place outside there, whatever you want to call it. Breezeway would be one part of it for sure. And then I hear also that the furniture is going to be replaced in the porch area for the south building. And yet we're fighting, higher prices for everything. And the only way you can control or have an impact on inflation is to stop buying, push back. Instead of eating out 3 times a week, maybe you have to cut back to eat out once a week. And pretty soon, it has an impact on inflation. So what commitments do we have now, or are you thinking about? Because I see furniture here that might be on the list for replacement, even though the only thing they need is a cleaning. They're good, comfortable chairs, and all they need is a cleaning. I can take you out here to the lobby area, and you can see where dirt is beginning to build up on the arms. Why don't you clean the furniture rather than replace it, to save us money and to help fight back on inflation.
The best example I can give is the north building. And so the north building is going to go through a complete and total renovation. In 2023, it's new fixtures, paint, carpet, furniture, artwork, sconces, everything. And so to your point, is some of that furniture salvageable? Is particularly some of the out-of-way hard pieces, chest and things like that? Absolutely. Probably some of it is salvageable, but here's what we weigh in making that decision. I've got 17-year-old furniture that is showing its wear. I've cleaned it to the point where it's threadbare. The carpets, there's no amount of cleaning in the world that is going to repair the traffic patterns in the carpet. It's just exhausted. It's been there, it's been down for 17 years. And so at some point, you have to make that decision. Okay, is this hindering our marketing, or is it helping our marketing? And it's very clearly in this example that those finishes have to be replaced. We've gotten our life expectancy out of them. We depreciate over a 7-year period. We put that down 17 years ago. It's been fully depreciated now for 10 years. And so it has no value on my books. It's completely off my books. And so you make that decision that, okay, it's time to replace this. And then not only do I get to take that depreciation for 7 more years, but I also make sure that I'm keeping pace with market forces so that when prospects walk into the building, they don't say, oh, well, this is nice. It's a little dated, but this is nice. And think about that. You think about return on investment. Look at the south building. We're almost full in the south building. Did you know that? All of our vacancies are in the north. And between the fire and the ratty condition of the furniture and the FF&E, it's getting to be a hard sell. And so that's what we try to weigh when we make those decisions. Any other question? All right, thank you very much. Really.